Hi everyone, it's Professor Chew, and it's week 9, and I'm sorry it took me longer than usual to grade homework and quizzes. The reality was that because of the Sakai, not the Sakai upgrade, but whatever kind of upgrade was going on this weekend, as some of you found out, it took a little bit longer to log back on, and all of Saturday was not possible to log on. But maybe that gave us all a much needed break. So I'm just going to quickly go over some of the lesson 9 homework. I actually think lesson 9 is the hardest lesson in the book, because it introduces the Latin participles and verbs. And as you probably noticed, they are a little bit tricky to break down, and also even to figure out, what base you're looking at. So what I've gathered together here is the terms from the homework. And of course, as you know, on our homework for when you do the breakdowns of the words, I give you a random selection on the homework of all the 50 questions, all the words that you can break down from the textbook. So you may not have seen these words on your homework assignment, but good you're watching this video, because you might see some of these words again, or words like them. So a few little things to point out, and I tried to group these kind of by issue. As you know, there were a whole bunch of new pronouns, prefixes to learn, like ab, away from, and ad, which is towards. And so we had those two words, abduct versus adduct. And there was another word in the part 2 of the homework, which was away from the mouth. Some of you wrote down the word, forget what I was saying. The answer is ab oral, because ab means away from, and you have oral here, meaning towards the mouth. So, and then notice, of course, you do need to be really careful when you are when you are breaking down these words, because as you can see, one letter makes a big difference about which word you're looking at. Another word that was on the homework was afferent, which means carrying toward. Notice that's here. Now, this word is some of you put down efferent, or nobody put down efferent, but efferent actually means carrying away from, because this prefix ef is a variant of the prefix ex, which means out of, as in the word exit, which also means away from. So efferent is a different word that was put in, like I can say, to alert about prefixes. And offerent again means towards, because the off is actually a variant of this other prefix, which is odd. So in other words, an odd, an off, and there are some other variations of this prefix, including at. There's a whole list in lesson 9, but this is a prefix that changes a bit, but it means toward. So that's one thing you should keep in mind, the differences between these prefixes. Odd, which can also look like off, or ought, and some other variations, and then F for X, out of, away from. DE has the basic meaning actually of down from or away from, like in the word descent. But it can actually also have the meaning of away from. Why did so many things mean these things? Commiserate with your anyone you know who's taking Latin, and what they get to do with these words. They even has some other meanings, but we don't need to worry about them right now. So keep in mind those prefixes. And I'm bringing all this up because the homework for this week, week 9, lesson 10, as you'll see, is, well, it's not the most, how to describe it. The homework for this week is on the cardiovascular system, and what we're really entering into now is we're going through a section of the book where we keep basically looking at different body systems for like the next couple weeks. So we actually have, sorry, I'm trying to go to the screen, it's not working. Anyways, there's no new material as far as like grammatical concepts in this lesson, or really in the next several lessons. So it's mostly vocabulary building. So on the quiz for this week, we're going to have some of the words and concepts from lesson 9, and we're also going to have a prefix and suffix section, which will include words from lesson 9, because it's always good to go over those again. Anyways, back to the homework review. Antebrachium, okay, this was the word that caused us a little confusion because there is an I at the end of this base, brachii. In that way, it's like some of the words that you may remember from lesson 1, like cardi, heart, and crani, which was skull. So as for those words, when you have, when the base is I, if the suffix that follows it begins with an IUM, so this is the suffix meaning membrane or part of the body in this case. This word means the forearm. The I at the end of the base gets absorbed into the suffix. You need to write the whole suffix as IUM, so I know that you know that that's the suffix, meaning in this case, you know, part of the body. And you can either put the I here into parentheses, as many of you have gotten to the habit of doing, or you can just leave it out. Those would both be correct. Something like the final exam, which, yeah, we'll start talking about that next week. Okay, another word, areflexia. So this is the prefix a, which means without or deficient or lacking. This word, in other words, has two prefixes, the a and the re. And then these other two words, digiti and fungi, well, they both have this I here, which is a plural form of a Latin noun. So in other words, digiti, so if you, on the definitions, the answer to that should not have been finger or toe, it should have been fingers or toes. And similar for fungi, that's not fungus, it's many fungus says. I mean, in English, we often use this other, I think, plural for fungi, but it's really should be pronounced, it really should be written like with this I in Latin. And actually, those plurals, those Latin plurals will also be on the quiz for this week. So we can work on those too. I'll explain all this also in an email that will be coming later today, and I'll put it up on the Sakai page too. But basically, this week for lesson 10, we're just doing lesson 10, and then we're also reviewing last week. Okay, there's another word on the homework, which is fungistasis. Now, notice that the I here is not a Latin verb, Latin noun ending. It's a connecting vowel. Oh. And then the base used here is stasis. And so notice that the S is not part of the base. There was a word like this on the midterm, and quite a few people actually thought that the base was stas. It's sta. Just wanted to note these words here. For genitalia, this is the word with two suffixes. The base is genit and stable. The base is actually stable, and this is the ending E. And then for vericidal, this is an example of a U being used as a connecting vowel, and the sid here is the word that means to kill. And you know, if you ever can't remember what that is, just think of the word insecticide. Right? That's exactly the same base, insecticide. Okay, so that was a lot of the complications that we had with lesson 9. Another thing that happened in lesson 9 is this business about Latin participles. So if you want another explanation about what a participle is, that was provided in the lecture notes. So you might want to take a look at those again. But basically, a participle is what we call, it's a verbal noun. So it is a verb that's been turned into a noun. For instance, increasing. I don't know. Levels of student debt. That's not a happy topic, but it is a good example of a participle. Increase is a verb, ing makes it a participle. Sorry, maybe we should find one that's happier. Laughing, how about that? The laughing, yeah, laughing's better than a crying baby, right? Anyway, so laugh is a verb at ing that makes it into a participle. The equivalent for this ing ending in Latin is some of the endings that you see here, namely this en, also the ient. So we actually had a vocabulary item on the quiz which gave you all of the endings, like they are on, en, and aunt, and eant. If you're asking why are there so many, why can't they just have one? This is because in Latin there are 4 different groups of verbs. They're called conjugations, and they all have different sets of verb endings for the present, imperfect, future, etc. tenses, and if you're taking Latin, you get to learn them. Anyway, so for your purposes, you need to know that these are, as I said on the quiz, these are endings for a Latin participle. This item will be on the next quiz, so keep that in mind, and also keep it differentiated from this other item that was on the quiz, which is this little sc, which looks very innocent, but has the complicated name of inceptive verb marker. I don't make these up. I take them from the textbook. Endings. This SC is, again, it's a marker that the verb has something called an inceptive function. What that means is that the verb has a meaning that means that whatever the action of the verb is, it's beginning. So we have this verb here. It's it's noun, excrescens. So this was actually this en. It's from the ending for a Latin participle. The ce here is a suffix. And so even this sc here looks deceptively like an inceptive verb marker, but it's not. It's just the ending of the base, crest, which means to increase. So this is something about, increasing as this, the act of increasing outward. You can translate that term this way on an exam. However, this word, let's see, which tumescent, which I actually have backwards, tumescence. Sorry, fix this. Let me check what the word is. While I'm looking up the word, go on to incipient. Incipient is an example of a word that uses a participle. And so the IENT here is functioning as an ending. And so in other words, this means something like, literally this space means sip, means to take. In this case is used as an intensifier. So it actually means something like taking in. Literally though, this means beginning. It's actually used that way in English. I put this other word here, inception, because believe it or not, even though this is kip here, and this is sept here, these are actually from the same Latin verb, which is the word for to take, which maybe this will just complicate it more, but here it goes. It's actually capio, capere, capi, captu. Those are the forms of this verb in Latin. Because this verb has all these interesting forms, when you are using the verb as a base for a word in medical terms, well, some of those other terms come up like this. I know you're probably saying, wait, you just typed those all up and none of those appear. Well, the verb actually has other forms too, including this CEP form and CIP. Great way to enhance your memorization skills. I cannot emphasize that enough, but that's another story. Anyways, just wanted to point that out, that is actually the same word that you were looking at here. So both the kip and the kept are from this verb that means to take, and these are the two forms that you've had to memorize, but there actually could possibly be other forms, even like this one, CAPT. So, beautiful story, you can learn Latin. Back to tumescence. Sorry about that earlier. So it has the base tume, which means to swell, and the E is part of the base. But can be, a lot of you wrote it in parentheses, that's fine. Sometimes it disappears. This is a verb that does have the inceptive verb marker, and that's because this can't really be anything else. I mean, this isn't a base that ends in SC like excrescens. And it also uses the Latin participle ending, and then it has a suffix. So there are not a ton of these words in the English language, but there are a couple, and they are, as you can see here, a little tricky to break down. So I think there are some more in the lesson 10 homework. There were some on the quiz last week, and there'll be some in the upcoming quiz for this week, as I said. So we can keep practicing those because, of course, you'll probably see them. You will see them, something like them, on the final exam. Okay, last slide. As you probably noticed, there's this verb that had a lot of different forms, and the verb is the verb for to make or to do. So some of its forms are fic or fi or fac, actually. Or fact. It is from a Latin verb, which means to make or to do. The verb is actually facio, facere, faci, factum. It means to make or do. It gives us words like in French, faire, which means it's French for to make or to do. Excuse me. Anyways. I just put all these words here because a couple of students had some problems breaking these words down in the homework, and many of these words, you have a base, then a connecting vowel, which tends to be an I, and then one of these wonderful forms of facio. So it's fic in the case of it's sometimes it's in the middle of a word, sometimes it's fic. Fi really only appears at the end, but that FIC stem, as you can see, is quite common. Occasionally also there is a stem FAC, and then there's also a stem FACT, tumefaction, the action of making something swelling. I also wanted to include here, this is a very tricky thing, and you could say, why did the book include these two words in the same chapter? I think they might have done it on purpose because there is another word in Latin, which is the word for face, which is facies, which gives us these face, faci, which does not mean does not mean make, it means face. And that appears for interest in the stem superficial. Something that's on above the surface, pertaining to something that is above the surface is superficial. So this is a different word. In other words, the base here is different from the base here, even though it sure looks a little bit similar. So I need to point that out. The difference really is that the base for face has an I at the end, and the base for to make doesn't have an I at the end. It does have a Y, but different letter. I will have these slides uploaded for you on Sakai so you can look them over too. So let us just look at one more thing, which is to take a look at the midterm right now. There will this answer key will be posted. I put up for the multiple choice. I just put up the definitions for the base section. And sorry, I was looking at that. I need to share it with you. So you will get this answer key. And I have scanned. The reason it's taking me so long to get the midterms back, because I have them all graded, is that I have to scan everybody's midterm and then to a couple of huge PDF files, break it down into 147 separate PDFs, and then get them to you. So just bear with me. Once again, this is the biggest class I've ever taught like this, which I love, but it does mean it takes a little. It just takes me a little bit longer because I'm human and all that to get everything done to you. But your midterm is coming your way imminently. Anyways, this is the key. You can see what everything means. Please especially take a look at the prefix section. That was tough. It's always tough. It's going to be very tough for the final because some of the prefixes from the first part of the class will actually be on the final. Suffixes will be on the final too. Why is that? It's because when you go out, into the big wide world and you're working as a medical scribe or, as a resident or, as a PA, you're going to need to know all these terms. You don't need to just know the terms for the first half of the class. Sometimes you need to know all the terms all the time. So that's why the final exam is, yes, cumulative. Although I will tell you that in the past students have found the midterm harder than the final because with the final, you know what to expect. The second page is an explanation of all the medical terms. If you have more specific questions, ask me about them. I think some of the more tricky ones are this word dysphagia, which means undue prolongation of life by artificial means. In other words, someone is dying. You could say it means die in a bad way. Some of these words were more obvious than others. I was only looking for you to notice something like one little base, raphi, which means a suture. That should give the word to you. Or other words like apophysis, a projection from a bone and outgrowth without an independent center of ossification. This one was tricky because, of course, it has the word bone in it, and there were some other words that had the word bone in them too, like osteoanagesis. Okay, the reason this one is because it was an item of projection, something away from the prefix apo, and then the physis indicates something that is a growth. I know that one was tricky. But sometimes, as you found in your homework, the medical terms and their definitions, the bases and the definitions don't entirely line up. And what other ones? Capitellum. That was the giveaway here was the word head at the end of this long definition because the word caput means head in Latin. And actually, I would say this very long word, kaleogonathopalatoschisis, in some ways was maybe one of the easier ones. She says, and in the sense that if you know what a cleft is, that schisis, and then all these other words do refer to parts of the soft palate, upper jaw, and lip. Characteristic, able to distinguish the left from the right side of the body. So the side is knowing the hand. You're like, what does that have to do with the left versus the right side? Seems to me that this is a word that was created with someone doing what I still do, which is when I'm trying to figure out should I go left or right, I look at my hands. Anyways, so these are the words. And then I also have on the very last page, I have all the words put together. And then I broke down for the word analysis. If there was more than one way to do some of the words, I indicated that. It's possible some of you had yet another way to do it that was correct. I wanted to point out this word, synoviocyte, which almost everybody defined it correctly, but did not break it down correctly because synov is actually a base. I and O are both connecting vowels, or you could have actually broken it down sun and a, because sun is a prefix and a actually is a base meaning egg. I don't know why I put the kept putting the base gnosia in so many words, but that was good for those of you who kept defining it. That was fine with me. Notice these words. If you got any of these words wrong, like 7, 8, or 9, this is something to focus on. Polyatia, pedontics, and xanthomatosis. Notice that these are all bases that begin with a vowel, ot and otant, and also number 25, gonophodynia, odin meaning pain, the condition of pain in the jaw. So these are bases again that begin with vowels. So this O is not a connecting vowel; it is part of the base. So note that there will be more of those to come. And then omat is actually a prefix, suffix, excuse me, that indicates a tumor or a condition. What else? Here's hypostasis, which has the sta for the base that a couple people got incorrect. I mean, generally, and then, okay, here for suprarenogenic sclerotic ectomy and hemangioectasis, these are all examples of compound suffix forms. I don't know how they ended up next to each other. That was unintentional. But anyways, so you can either just leave them as is, genic, ectomy, and ectasis, or you can break them down. And breaking them down is helpful because I think it does remind you of the meaning. So this one was gen-ic. But notice this ectomy breaks down as ek, tom, e, because this base means a slicing or a cutting. And this one is ectasis because ek is out of, but ta actually means to stretch. It's actually related to the word tendon, believe it or not. And the cis is the suffix. So some of you tried to break these down but didn't break them down correctly, so you lost points. My suggestion is for future exams is to really memorize that list of compound suffix forms. It's from lesson 4. It's also one of the appendixes in the back, because you're much safer if you just leave the compound suffix forms as is. Don't try to break them down. Yes. So, and then on the back or on this side, most of you put the definitions. In most cases, you didn't get, most of you got 100% on that. If you got 1 or 2 points off and you want to know what you got wrong with the definition, and I didn't indicate that because you put your words on the back, you send me an email. When I'm scanning them, it's just a lot easier just to scan the front side, but I can actually scan the backs too. So just let me know and I can get you a copy of that so you can see what happened. And on the whole, I thought the midterm went very well. I really thank everybody for all the last minute changes about it, especially given the fact that I wasn't there for the last one. My husband was thrilled to meet all of you. He, as you know, if he went to Rutgers himself, so he had classes in that classroom. So, nostalgia trip. Anyways, so those are the review. Look for the midterms. I'm really hoping to get them to you by tonight. They'll be uploaded. You can look them over. You should email me with questions. You should check my math. I was, adding these up pretty quickly. So if you think I didn't give you enough points, let me know and I can update things really quickly. And, keep up the really good work. And also, I'm glad I got some nice messages from you about last week's forum post, which I kind of, figured that after you've been through exams and everything, it might be a good moment to talk about things like stress, anxiety related to being in college and having lots of classes and exams. So that was one reason we had that topic, but I hope it was a good thing to talk about. I'm getting another topic up. It'll be up by today too. And it's actually going to be about medical marijuana. So I hope that's of interest. And keep up the good work. Keep your questions coming. And thanks for everything. And if it was you got to meet you, I was really happy about that. And look forward to seeing you all again at the final. So take care. Bye.